Welcome to the Battle Blog. My name is Ryan, and today's topic is, what is retro? I was born in 1981, so my first system was the regular Nintendo Entertainment System. And when I was growing up, a lot of people were like, well, I had the system before that, and that was the Atari. I mean, I always knew of the Atari through magazines, but I never played it, and I didn't exactly get to play an Atari until 2002 when I went to a convention, and there was a game room that had all the game systems up to the current era, which was the PS2 at the time. And so I finally got to play the Atari, and it was really fun. Now let's fast forward to the time of this recording, 2016. And now people are saying retro is the Nintendo GameCube and the PS2. Wow, I'm really old. Yeah, so over a decade ago in 2003, 2005, I considered retro everything up to the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation 1. And now kids are going like, hey, retro's the GameCube and the PS2. I'm like, wow, I feel really old, so get off my lawn! And it's kind of a scary thing to think now that in a couple of years, the Xbox 360, which actually ceased production this year, and the PS3 are going to be considered retro. Doesn't that blow anyone else's mind? Because if you think about it, in 2005 and 2006, when the PS3 and the Xbox 360 came out, they were kids probably around 9 to 10 to 8. And now, over a decade later, these kids are adults now. Adults in college, adults working jobs, adults with kids. The kids have kids. Isn't that freaking insane? Man, I'm really old. Well, but if you really do think about it, even back in the day, probably around the PS1 and 64 era, I mean, maybe even back as far as the Genesis and the SNES, people were considering the Atari retro, the Magnavox Odyssey retro. I mean, wow. So those people are probably a lot older now, obviously. Yeah, so all this GameCube is retro, the PS2 is retro, are probably coming from kids born in the 90s, or probably the late 90s even. And you know what? Probably a lot of people who were born during the Odyssey and the Atari are calling me the little kid, So as the passage of time continues to flow onward and onward, all the systems will eventually be considered retro. Soon the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One will be retro, probably in the year 2030, 2040. And probably by that time I'm going to be really old, or walking with my cane and saying, I played those games back in the day, the Nintendo was retro right there, man. Get off my lawn, whippersnapper! So that concludes this battle blog on what is retro. So for those of you older than me or younger than me, let me know what you consider retro in the comments below. So take care.